Hello. In this video we are going to explore the topic of creating a website. And our objectives will be to understand the basic operation of a website, explain and review the use of hypertext markup language or HTML in building websites or web pages, creating a personal web page, and then publishing a website as a group. Let's begin by reviewing the components of a website. Starting on our left-hand side, you have the user and the user's PC, whether it be a desktop, a laptop, or even it could be some sort of pad like an iPad, but any device that would allow the user to access the internet. The user connects to the internet either using high-speed, cabled, or wireless. And on the other side of the internet, we have a ISP or Internet Service Provider that allows us to host our website. Now our website is hosted on a web server, and we had discussed servers in the past week as machines capable of sharing resources with multiple users. Often with larger websites you'll find that there is also a database server, and the database server's responsibility is to provide information to the web server, and in some cases even write the code that the web server uses and sends back to the user. In our particular example, we're going to be creating a very simple website, so we're not going to have a database server. When you set up your website, one of the things that you've got to define is you've got to define the name of your site, specifically your domain name. And up above you'll notice that I have www.mycompany.com. Now this is just an example and not a real domain name, but for our purposes we'll just use it as our example here. Now the www is actually the name of the server. mycompany.com is the name of my domain. So within my domain I may have multiple servers. One server may be called FTP, another server might be called email, and I have one server that's called www, which is the default name for a web server in a given domain. Alright, so let's, understanding the components, let's move on. In order to access a web page or a website, the first thing that you need on your desktop, laptop, or computer system is you need an internet browser, a program that allows you to access systems that are out on the internet. In this particular case, we're using the internet browser Firefox. And when you open up your internet browser, the next thing that you need to do is you need to supply the browser with the name of the site that you wish to visit. In this particular case, we call this the URL, or Universal Resource Locator. And in our case, that URL is www.mycompany.com, as you can see down below. We use that and we enter that into our web browser, which tells the browser where to look for the information that we're interested in. Now here's an example of a very basic website or a web page, and it's going to be the one that we are going to build in class with some minor changes where you're going to basically put in your name. In either case, some of the parts that you should be familiar with or aware of is the first thing that we have is what's called a page title. And you'll notice that the page title happens to have my first name and last initial. You'll be changing the page title to have your first name and last initial up there. But that's generally what we refer to up in that tab is the page title. Next, we have what's called a header. Generally, this is text that tends to have a larger point size and a slightly different font. Draws attention and announces what is this page about. After that, you can see that I have a graphic or an image file. This is a file that I took from the internet and essentially pasted it into to this web page. We'll be showing you how to grab images and stick them into your web page, and you'll be selecting a picture that you would like to see on your page. I simply selected this one simply because the weather outside feels so much like spring, so I felt this looked like spring. So in either case, moving on, the next thing we have is text. A lot of web pages, they simply contain text, the message that we're trying to deliver. In this particular case, my name is James B, and this is my web page for CISC 110 N84, and that should actually for you should be an N05. And then finally, we have something called a hypertext link, and what this is a combination of both text as well as functionality that allows us to navigate to another page. In this particular case, this link ultimately will take us back to the home page that links all of the other student pages together. And we'll actually show how that works and how that gets set up together in class. Again, going back to our example, we start with the user on the left-hand side, where the user is going to take the URL or the domain name, enter it into their browser. So they enter that into their computer, and the next thing that occurs is the browser generates an information request. That information request is sent over to the server. The web server then identifies or determines the web pages that have been requested and then sends that information back to the user's PC. Once the information has been received, the desktop PC or the laptop then displays the information as described in the web page and displays it on the user's screen. Before we go on to create a web page, there are a couple of points that you should keep in mind. When creating a web page, the web page name is case sensitive. This means that when you save your web page, you've got to pay special attention to the way you spell it, and especially the case that you use, whether it's uppercase or lowercase letters. You've got to be consistent, otherwise it will not work. Also, when it comes to web page extensions, the ones that we'll be using here will be HTML or HTM. HTM is specific to Microsoft. However, Microsoft servers now handle HTML just as easily. Finally, be aware that even though we talk about HTML and HTM, these are not the only extensions that you may see being used for a given web page. Some of the other extensions that are used out there are ASP, PHP, and CSS. Before we look at the actual code used to create a website, I just wanted to look back at our example web page and just go through some of the elements with it with you again, keeping in mind that your page title is up above. Your page header is essentially a heading at the very top of your page, and you can have different size headers, and we'll talk a little more about that. We've got a graphic image in our page, we have some text, and then finally we've got this hypertext link. We're now going to look at the actual code that makes up this page and just talk a little bit about how that code works. Based on the example web page that we created, now let's go in and take a look at the actual code that's generating that page. If you recall, the very first thing that I showed you was the title. And up above here, you'll notice that we've got a title, James B. Down below, next we've got our header, and we have Welcome to CISC 110 web page. So that was the header that we had at the very top of the page. Next was the image of the flowers that we displayed, and here's the JPEG file that we used to display that picture. That picture had a width of 520 pixels and a height of 328 pixels. Moving down, we had text, and you'll see my name is James B. This is my web page for CISC 110.N84. And so there's the code necessary to make that message pop up. And then finally we had that hypertext link, and here is the link. Click here to go back to the home page, and what happens is we're specifying how to navigate back to our website's home page. And the index.html is something that I'll be building and then connecting to all of your individual web pages. Before we move on, I just want to focus on some of the fundamentals to a web page. Web pages use things called tags, and tags identify different parts of the web page. They also identify different functionality or tell the internet browser what to do with a particular piece of information. And all web pages generally start off with HTML at the very top, okay, surrounded by brackets. And then at the very bottom you'll notice we have a /HTML, okay? So often when you see a tag, you'll see a beginning tag, and then somewhere you're going to be looking for an ending tag. Up above, again, we have this tag called head, and you'll find its ending tag with a /head. Title is another example where we start off with title and then our ending tag is /title. Now, web pages are generally broken into two major pieces. There is the header portion, which starts with head and then /head at the very end, and then there's the body of the web page. And the body obviously contains most of the content that we're actually visualizing on the page itself when it's displayed to us. Again, body starts with the tag body and then ends with a /body. Inside the body, we have a number of different things going on. The first thing is you'll notice we have our header. And the reason that this text here, welcome to my CISC 110 web page, the reason it's so much bigger is because of these tags called header tags, H1. Now, there are a couple of different headers that you can have. H1 is the largest, H2 is one step down, and then H3 is even smaller. So you can have a different size header tags. Our next tag is an image tag, and unlike other tags, the image tag does not need an ending tag. Over here we've got a couple of breaks, and all these things do is they just create a line break. The P tag is used to create paragraphs, so it provides spacing between various pieces of our web page. The font tag allows us to do functional things, such as identify how big is the font going to be in terms of point size, or what color is are the characters going to be. In this particular case, it's not necessarily a black, it's kind of a dark gray, and we'll go back and take a look at it. Again, we have two backslash fonts or slash fonts, and then our ending paragraph tag. Finally, we go in again to another paragraph, and this time we have an address tag along with its ending tag. And inside, this is where we set up our hypertext link. What we're doing is we're displaying this message, click here to go back home. And if they click on that text, we're telling the system to navigate us back to the web page called index.html. So from here, what we're going to be doing is we're actually going to put together that sample web page, and keeping in mind that you'll also be creating all of the necessary code and modifying what I have here, and just making small modifications just to help you understand how this code works. Having given you an overview of the process that we're going to be going through and talking about some of the basics of creating a web page and then a website, let's now go on to start actually building our web page. And we will begin by first creating a folder, and we're going to open up our Windows Explorer, going to the Documents library, and then clicking on New Folder, and the name of our folder is going to be Website. Now, what I'm doing at this point is I'm following the directions that I've already given you in the lab assignment, so you'll probably want to follow along as I do this. So we now have our website folder, and you can see that here, Documents, Website. the next thing that we want to do is we want to get an image or a picture that we want to use within our web page. Now you can use whatever image you prefer. I'll let you pick the image. Just make it appropriate. And to do that, we need to first get out to the internet, and we're going to use an internet browser. My preference is to use the Mozilla Firefox. Some people prefer the Internet Explorer from Microsoft. In Firefox, I've got this Google search capability. However, if you don't have that in your browser, simply go to google.com and enter in your search criteria. So I simply entered in flower before. And over here I've got images. I'm going to click on that, and it's going to give me a list of images, and here's that one that I found earlier. So there it is in its preview. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a right click, and then I'm going to say Save Image As. And it now, because the website was the last folder I was in, it's going to save to website there. If it doesn't, then you'll have to navigate to your website folder like that and then save your file. Now the extension that is going to be placed on the end of this file is JPEG or JPG for short. So I'll save that, and let's just go back to our Internet Explorer and see it, and you'll notice there it is. If I give it a right click and go to Properties, you'll notice it's a .jpg file. So great. And you want to make sure that you remember what that is, or you write that down. Also keep in mind that the name of the file is case sensitive, so keep that in mind. Alright, having created the file, the next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to create the code, the HTML code that is going to create our web page. Now to create or write up our web page, there are a number of programs that I can use. Probably the one that you know best is Microsoft Word. I can use Word to create or write up web pages. However, I'm going to use something a little simpler, and it's a program called Notepad. So we're going to go down here. We're going to go to All Programs, and then we're going to go to Accessories, and then you've got Notepad. Now Notepad is a very simplistic program. You know, if you have nothing else on a system, Notepad will do the job very nicely. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to start typing the code as I've shown you in the lab handout in Figure 1. So you're going to want to follow along, and you're going to want to type that code in exactly as I have it. And keep in mind, you're going to be changing those spots in that figure that are in bold, and you're going to be putting your name and the name of your image file in there. So let me just start off the process, and we start off with the HTML tag, and then we do a head tag, and then we're doing a title tag. Now you'll notice that I'm doing a lot of tabs, and one of the reasons I do that is to make my page more readable, especially when I've got to go back in and possibly fix it. So there's my title tag, my start, my ending title tag. And now I'm going to come in and I'm going to put in my /head and the rest of it. Now I'm going to do a fast forward here and put the rest of this code in rather than dragging you through this. Okay. So there's my body tags and all of the other stuff. So what you'll notice is that you're going to be going in, you're going to be changing my name and putting in your first name, last initial. You're also going to put in the name of your image file. Mine is flowers_32.jpg. And then you're going to put one last time your name and last initial here in this piece of code. The rest of it, you type it, you know, as you see it. If you don't, we're going to end up with errors. All right. Having typed all of this in, now the next thing that I need to do is I need to save this file back to my website folder that I created earlier. So I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go to Save, and again, it automatically comes back to the website folder. If it doesn't, make sure that you navigate back there and you save this in that folder. And the name of the file, again, is going to be your first name and your last initial, followed by the file extension HTML. If you recall, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Again, you're going to replace the file name with your first name and your last initial. And finally, the last piece we want to change is just change this to all files and then click on Save. So we'll pull up our Windows Explorer again, and now you'll notice we've got our image file and we also have our HTML file. And notice that the Firefox is here, and the reason for that is Firefox has been designated as the default program to open up any HTML files. We talked about file association earlier in the semester, and that's what we're seeing here, is that HTML files are associated with the Firefox application. So having now saved it, the next thing that we want to do is we want to test our file to make sure that it does what we asked it to do, and that's namely display our web page. So I'm going to point to our file and I'm going to double click, and what it's going to do is it's going to open up Firefox and then it's going to display our web page for us. And here it is. Okay, so Firefox is opened up, and you'll notice that my name is up at the very top up here. It's also in the tab or the title, and when we put in that title tag and James B, that's what appears here. Here's my H1 header. Here's my picture. Again, here's my name and first initial, and then finally we've got this link that is going to allow us to navigate back to our home page. Now be aware that this doesn't work just yet because I'm going to actually build that piece of our website. When you've got this up and running, you've got your web page and it's running properly, what you're going to do is you are going to send to me as attachments your graphic file and your HTML file, and then I'm going to take those files, I'm going to put them together, I'm going to create another file called index.html, and then in class we are going to publish that up to the internet, out into the cloud, and you're going to see how we create essentially a website. So this looks great. I don't need any additional changes. If there was an issue, then what I could have done was I could have gone back to my notepad editor and checked to see if I had any typos, if I had left anything out, if the case was incorrect in places. You want to double check this. If your website does not look quite right, go back and check the code. If the code looks great, again, what we want to do is you're going to take these two files, okay, and you're going to email them back to me. And then I'm going to take everybody's files from class and I'm going to create this site, and then when we get together next in class, I'm going to show you how I put that all together. We'll then publish it up to the cloud and you'll see how our website now works. I hope you found this informative and useful. Many people today are creating their own web pages, and hopefully this will give you an idea as to how to possibly start that process.